Hey everybody, wanted to bring you a video. I just picked up my Ruger about a week back, and this is the LCP, the 380. And the reason I bought it, and before I go into a comparison of the Bodyguard versus the Ruger, I bought it because a while back my Smith & Wesson had an issue that I've seen on online forums and I never thought I would have. The actual retainer pin here sheared off, and I sent it back to Smith & Wesson, and within probably a week and a half got it back and literally went out and put 6 rounds of Winchester white box, just standard junk, not junk, but you know what I mean, range ammo. Put 6 rounds through it, and what happened is the pin sheared again. So the second time I sent, along with the gun, I sent a letter stating that this has been the second time that it's happened. I was kind of expecting maybe Smith & Wesson would send me a letter back saying, hey, sorry for your issue, here's a magazine, or we're very sorry, this one's been replaced with a stronger pin, or we fixed something in the frame, something to give me a little more assurance that it's not going to happen again. I didn't get anything back from Smith & Wesson. Again, they did send it back very quickly. Didn't have to pay for anything. It was all covered. So not a dime out of my pocket, which is definitely a plus on Smith & Wesson. And I love Smith & Wessons. Other than Colts, they're pretty much my favorite handguns. So it was kind of disappointing, but I still love them. I'm not going to change that. It did, however, shake my faith in this as my summer concealed carry gun. I can put it in my pocket. It's light enough. It's thin enough. So it kind of shook my faith in this particular gun to be used as my sole concealed carry in the summer. When the pin shears off, it literally, you can't get it out yourself unless you have machining tools and things like that, or you're just really good with gunsmithing. It shears it off so that there's nothing there. This whole part's not showing, and you see the internal metal part of the pin, and it's stuck in the frame. And I'll actually take it apart just so everyone can see it, just in case these have all been unloaded before, but just so everybody can see. Let me put it down here and get a little tool and pull the pin out so I can show you where it sheared off. Take it off camera here. So needless to say, I was pretty disappointed, but so here's the pin, and what happens when it shears off is that it basically shears at this connection right here. Right where the tip of my finger is, pretty much. So you end up, I'm trying to get it in focus here, there we go. Right past this block right here, it shears. And what it does is it shears off right past this little piece of wire here, which is meant to actually lock in underneath and hold everything back. So what you end up with is part of the pin inside there, sheared off, so there's nothing here. This, you can literally see this view, except in this hole you see the remainder of the pin. Now technically it's probably even more functional since there's nothing that can slide out anymore, because the sheared off pin is actually behind this wire that holds it back. So technically it's probably more reliable, but I don't like the fact that it can shear off. I don't know if every time, if it breaks again, it's going to shear off in the exact same way, or it's going to cause a malfunction. So that caused me, long story short, that caused me to go check out the Ruger. I'm going to put this pin back in and get this going. So that caused me to go to the gun store and take a look at the Ruger and see what that was about. I've always been interested in it, and so that's why I have the Ruger. Now, in terms of carrying and things like that, and by the way, this Ruger, I should probably tell you, is I think it's the Davidson's distributor version, the NRA version. I don't know how many they made, but you see there the serial number starts with NRA. It's got a camo frame, has NRA on the slide, laser etched, and if I can get it in focus, the NRA seal. And it's actually a really nice laser etching, so you can read all that. It's not muddled or anything. But so I wanted to do a comparison video. I now have two 380s. That have the same function as a backup or a main concealed carry, depending on your views on concealed carry. I won't go into that, but they both have a 6+1 capacity, 1 in the chamber and 6 capacity in the magazine. Interestingly enough, the weight on the Bodyguard, Smith & Wesson, is, per their website, 11.85 ounces. Overall length is 5 1/4 inches with a 2 3/4 inch barrel. And the weight on the Ruger is 9.4 ounces. So you've got a little over 2 ounces of difference, which is a big deal when you're carrying. Every ounce of weight counts. Same length barrel on the Ruger, 2 3/4 inches. Overall length is slightly shorter at 5.16 inches. Ruger has some extra information online. This is 0.82 inches wide, so less than an inch wide, and it's 3.6 inches tall. So whenever you pick them up, you'll notice, I do notice the weight difference. I really do. Smith & Wesson is much bulkier, and again, the Smith & Wesson does come with the integral laser. You can buy the LCP with the laser. I personally don't like the laser. I'd rather have it without the laser. That's just my choice, but you have the option with the LCP, laser or no laser, and with the Bodyguard so far, you don't have an option. You get it with the laser. So you can tell the weight difference. Smith & Wesson just feels bulkier. It feels solid, and I said that in some of my other videos. This just feels solid. This feels solid as well, but much lighter from here down, obviously, because this is all polymer and plastics, and up here is obviously the metal, steel, aluminum, anodized steel, whatever they use. So you can definitely feel the difference there. The other difference, and this is very noticeable, I actually ran into this. These are both unloaded. I'm just going to show you again. I didn't show you this one, but nothing in that one. Nothing in this one. So one difference is that the Smith & Wesson has the double strike capability, second strike capability. So if I fire my Smith & Wesson Bodyguard and I have a bad primer and the round doesn't go off, I can pull the trigger again and hit the primer again. Now with the Ruger, I have single strike. Pull the trigger, uh-oh, primer didn't go, something's wrong, gun didn't cycle, nothing happened. Pull the trigger again, nothing happens. Smith & Wesson, I can keep hitting that primer and see if it'll go off, and then rack the slide if I need to, if I need a new round. Now I say that because out of the first, I think 25 rounds I fired, I was just using Winchester White Box, and I did get a bad primer on one of them, and I wasn't able to hit it again, squeeze the trigger and strike the primer, strike the firing pin, strike the primer again. I had to eject the round, put a new round into it. So that's one thing, that's one difference, and usually if you buy quality self-defense ammo, I've never had an issue with any of the self-defense ammo I've used personally with bad primers. So I'm not that worried about that. If I had to, you know, you should practice tapping, racking, things like that with your concealed carry gun anyway. So it's likely if I ran into a scenario with the Smith & Wesson and I pulled the trigger and it didn't go bang, I'd probably go back to, you know, what you're trained with, which is just rack the slide and move forward. Forget about that round. But the other difference is here, and I'll put them up next to each other so you can see. The width is pretty close. I think the width is pretty similar. I don't have the Smith & Wesson stats. I couldn't find them on the Smith & Wesson site for width. The length, you can see here they're about the same, but a little difference there. And the height is actually where you see a difference. You can see there you've got a pretty good difference in the height with these two. So this gun is a lot easier, and you can see here from the grips, it looks a little bit thinner in the grip. But this is much lighter to carry. This just is really comfortable for me. The other differences here, the slide serrations are a little bit deeper than the Smith & Wesson and a little bit longer. You can see there. It's a little easier to grab the Ruger slide and pull back. One thing I don't like about the Ruger that I like about the Smith & Wesson, this is just my opinion, everybody has an opinion on this, but I do like having a round in the chamber and having the ability of the thumb safety. So whenever you pull this out of your pocket, your thumb's right there, and once you get this worked in, this safety is super easy to flip off. It's literally, I'm barely brushing it with my thumb. I just like to have that. It's not really needed on a double action only semi-auto. I mean, the trigger pull on this is this is not going to go off if you get something tangled in there in your pocket, at least in my opinion. This is a heavy and long trigger pull. It's another difference here. Ruger trigger pull to me feels a lot lighter. There's not a lot of buildup on the double action. With this, you can really feel all the springs and everything moving, and to me it's just a heavier, jerkier trigger pull, not as smooth as the Ruger, it's a real smooth trigger pull. So that's one difference that I've noticed, at least in my opinion. Sights are different. Take a look at the Ruger sights. They're pretty much non-existent. They are there. Put about 100 rounds through this, and the sights were perfectly on at self-defense distances, 7 yards, 21 feet. It was really just perfectly accurate, which I was thankful for, because you really can't do much with those sights. The front sight is so low, and it's meant for concealed carry. You don't get it snagged on anything. It's rounded, it's smooth, as is the rear part. It's all rounded, smooth. So I like that. I'm not really going for 25 or 50 yard shots with this. This is a last-ditch effort. You know, I really need to defend myself type of a gun. Smith & Wesson sights, a lot higher. They're still rounded a bit, but they're a little rougher. They're still rounded. They're still, I mean, it's obviously meant for nice, smooth concealed carry, but definitely higher up. You get a better sight picture, obviously, with these sights, with the Smith & Wesson. But the other thing about the Ruger that's different, you do have a slide stop here, but on your last shot, the slide does not lock back. So on your last shot, you're going to hear that, and you're going to have to drop the magazine, put more rounds in it, and go. You can use the slide stop, though. If you have a jam or something like that and you're at the range practicing, you can use it, but it's not automatic. It doesn't happen on the last shot. It doesn't happen on empty. So that's something to keep in mind. Smith & Wesson does have slide stop and does lock open on last shot. So I like that. I like the lock open on last shot. I know what's going on. I'm not going to be surprised in a self-defense situation with a click instead of a bang. With this, if I fire all 7 rounds and I'm looking down like this, I know I got to drop the mag, put a new one in, and drop the slide. So that's a couple differences there. We've already gone over trigger pull, safety. Recoil on these, they're pretty similar. The Smith & Wesson obviously weighs just a little bit more, but you know, 2 ounces on recoil, not the biggest difference. The one difference I have found is that the axis, the barrel axis with your hand is much more in line, which means that the recoil is going to be a bit more back instead of snappy and up. It also helps for point shooting. My finger lines right up just about to the barrel. When I take my finger off the trigger, it's so close. Ruger has a higher axis. So when I put it in my hand, the barrel's much higher up. The axis is higher versus this, which is more in line with my arm. So the Ruger's a bit more snappy, but I didn't notice any difference shooting a little bit faster at the target. This was still accurate and controllable. So I really enjoyed shooting this, I have to say. It was accurate, it was controllable, it wasn't painful, wasn't too snappy, which can happen with these 380s and the small concealed carry handguns. But this one, when you hold it, feels a little more solid in your hand, grips a little bit thicker, a little heavier, so it feels like a solid gun. This one feels solid, but it's a different feel. When I'm holding it here, I really can tell that the barrel axis is much higher, and that's different. When I point shoot, I'm not really lining up the sights. It's not really the pointing of my finger. It's going to be off a little bit. It's just a little different type of a grip. Still comfortable, still love it. Just different, just got to get used to it. So those are some of the differences on these two. Hopefully you got something out of it. I checked the websites, and I think the suggested retail price on a Bodyguard's like $420. I think I bought mine for $350 at a gun show. The Ruger, I think, is about $379 on Ruger's site, and I actually bought the NRA Davidson's edition, which is I think $20 more. I think they donate some to the NRA with every purchase. I think they donate $20. But I bought this one, the Davidson's edition, NRA edition, for about $330 from cheaper than dirt. Actually, at their McKinney store. So I actually walked in. They had these, and they had the standard black. They had ones with lasers, but I figured, you know, why not go for the NRA? It's a little different serial number, and it won't stop me from concealed carrying it. It's not exactly a super collector's gun or anything like that. It's unique, it's interesting, and if you have a choice between unique and interesting and standard, and the difference in price is 20 bucks, 15 bucks, 10 bucks, go for it, you know. You'll have something a little bit different than everybody else has, which is always good in a collection. So those are just some of my opinions, just showing you the differences. Feel free to agree or disagree. I know there's varying opinions on everything I just spoke about. So just wanted to bring this to you, just my opinion on these two guns and Smith & Wesson customer service, and why I've made a switch over to the Ruger for the LCP for concealed carry. So that's it. Hope you enjoyed the video. It's probably a bit longer than normal, but hopefully you liked it. Thanks for watching.